Hey Thumpers, welcome to our spoiler review of Blade Runner 2049. I'm Adam Havoc, joined here with...
Emma Fife.
Cameron Rice. Jumped you.
Yeah, sorry.
I know, you were like waiting, but you weren't waiting for
No,
it.
I wasn't.
You just knew it was going to happen.
Yep.
You just got right in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
He just jumped right in. So this is a spoiler review, and the reason why we're kind of just going to jump into the spoilers is because it is impossible to talk about this movie without spoiling anything. And I think
Right.
that was like the big discretion that I got from people who had seen the movie before me. They were like, I can't say anything.
You know,
because the second I open my mouth, it'll be a spoiler.
It's really interesting because I think that the trailers did a really good job of making you interested in seeing this film while still going into it not being entirely sure what it was going to be about. Like, I went into this movie and I had no idea what the plot was going to be.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, if you've gone back and watched any of our videos, we were the three that did the 2 trailer reactions for the Blade Runner trailers. Yeah, and this was like not really knowing. I tried to kind of stay abreast of it to some extent, even though I'm somebody who's like, I don't care about spoilers. This was something where I was kind of like, I kind of want to let this unfold because it's Villeneuve. I think maybe we could talk a little bit about going into it, because as Adam said, like scene 1, a major thing is revealed, so there's no way to even talk about this movie without being like, bleh. So if you're somebody that's like, I don't want to know anything, I just want to know if you liked it, we will say that, and then we're jumping into everything.
Yeah, okay, so starting at the top, going into it, I was expecting to be re-immersed in the whole sort of world of Blade Runner, which isn't quite post-apocalyptic. It's kind of cyberpunk LA mishmashed with all kinds of Asian cultures and otherwise, and I was very delighted with the execution of that. This is Blade Runner in a world where there have already been a whole bunch of anime films and series that have been heavily inspired by Blade Runner, and so it really kind of is able to embrace that sort of side of itself. And being a big anime fan, I absolutely loved the visuals of it, and I loved the movie. It was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, again, I had no idea what the plot was going to be going into it, and every time something happened in the plot, and again, we'll spoil this later, where they started to go in the direction of, oh, that would be predictable, or, oh, I would hate it if they did that. They didn't do that.
Yeah.
It was just incredibly well executed, just visually stunning, and it relied so heavily on enhancing the themes that were met with in the first Blade Runner film. So I loved it.
Yeah, I also went into it, and I think I tried to be smarter than the movie is. And I realized as the movie unfolded, I'm a real dum-dum.
Yeah.
Because there were things that I was like, really? We're going to go down this rabbit hole? Why would you do this? Like, this is very predictable. Okay. And then it's not that, and you're like, oh, good job. Good job, movie.
Yep.
Good job, Denis Villeneuve and and Ridley Scott and everybody involved. But yeah, I mean, I had rewatched Blade Runner a few months back, fell in love with it again because there's a lot of things that I missed or things that I never noticed before. Then watch again this morning and really, again, just try to immerse myself in that world. And I think the most impressive thing walking out of this movie, or even being in the first 5 minutes, was this beautifully recaptures what Ridley Scott did with the original Blade Runner, from the visual style, from the way that the universe felt very much lived in, and it had like this sort of its own life to it. And I think also the first Blade Runner for me very much tried to portray what our future would potentially look like, you know, in 2019. Whereas this one kind of went, well, we're not going to shift or skew the timeline to kind of make it feel like it's still a part of our reality. This is Blade Runner world, and we're just going to live in it.
Yep.
And I love that.
Yeah, for me, it was interesting kind of going into this because I think a little bit I want to talk about how this almost feels like a movie that shouldn't have happened. Like, it's almost impossible that it happened, because unlike people were saying that about like episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Star Wars, like when those came up, people were like, oh, we never thought this would happen. But there was always people kind of wondering, when Lucas passed away before Disney, would there eventually be
a franchise,
more Star Wars movies? You know, would there be more of this or more of that, this, that, and the other? Blade Runner was a bomb. It's a critically acclaimed. It was a culturally a cult movie bomb. It became like known as like a cautionary tale to like productions run amok, and what happens when you let your director and your screenwriters tell this weird, complicated story. And Blade Runner as a film was a cautionary tale that then the director's cut comes out and people are like, oh, this is genius, but it's still kind of a cult thing. I mean, even like Ridley Scott returning to Alien and all these other things were kind of like, okay, there was talk about that for a while. Blade Runner getting a sequel even, I feel like was only something that started to bubble around Prometheus.
Yeah.
Was like this kind of like...
Prometheus came out in 2010?
Yeah, was this like, oh, he might... There is talk about doing another Blade Runner. And then when it was announced Ridley Scott wasn't going to make it and was going to just produce it, I remember a lot of the internet was like, shut it, don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. Nope,
shut it down.
Man,
Don't do it. Don't do it.
The internet was wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really wrong.
And then having Villeneuve come in, I think swayed a lot of people. The original screenwriter from the first film.
Yeah.
The casting, Harrison Ford coming back in. I think there was a lot of things. And I think what's interesting, not spoiling anything, what's interesting to me in comparison to the first film is, you're starting to see a lot of written think pieces about the original film, most of them having to do with the "is the Blade Runner good" kind of a thing.
Of course.
I feel like it's I think there's a lot of people watching this movie for the first time, the original one, and what you generally tend to see is response to people saying it's cold, it feels distant, which is a very Ridley Scotty thing. It's like his movies can feel kind of distant and cold. They're thinkers, but there's not a lot of emotion. And I think the interesting thing about Villeneuve doing this movie, I adored this movie. It's very melancholy.
Yeah.
And there's a sadness to it. And I think Villeneuve as a director, if you've seen Arrival or Sicario or Prisoners, giving a director who does tend to work with emotion a world that people thought was cold was kind of a brilliant move.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, I'm trying to think of another sequel that to me feels as satisfying as this film does. The only allegory that I can draw, and this seems super out of left field, but it's Avatar and Legend of Korra, where Avatar, you have this world that gets set up, and then Legend of Korra is about a totally different set of characters, but it exists within the same world, and it still feels satisfying as a fan of the earlier series to watch Legend of Korra and see how this world has grown and changed. And that was kind of the way I felt about Blade Runner 2049, because I think that much like, again, with the example I give of Legend of Korra, you can watch Legend of Korra without having seen Avatar and still really enjoy it.
Yes.
So if you are not a Blade Runner fan and you're like, I don't know if I should see this movie, you should see this movie.
Totally.
It's a great movie on its own.
Yeah. And I make those statements. I love the original Blade Runner.
Oh, I do
but
too.
I'm seeing those pieces being written.
I mean, for me, like, I look at this movie almost like the T2 to Terminator.
Yeah.
The Terminator is
That's
a
another
very
really good
simple
example.
story.
Really
It's
good
a
example.
Very simplistic story done in a horror fashion. And then the sequel really builds off and builds this big spectacle sci-fi. Whereas like Blade Runner, the story, it's actually like a pretty simplistic story. It's just so visually juicy. There's just so much in there. And like it builds these beautiful concepts. And this movie takes it and just goes, takes it to a 10. And you're like, oh shit, this is what it could have been if all sort of, it was like a perfect storm for Ridley Scott, and he had all the money in the world and he could have built out this world. This is kind of what I feel like what that movie would have been.
So this is where we're gonna get into spoilers.
Yeah.
So we all three loved
no
it.
Going back.
All three of us are telling you to go see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Visually beautiful. So go. Now getting into spoilers. I think the reason this movie is so emotional in a way, emotional makes it, but like melancholy in a way, is this is like taking the tears and rain scene and the emotion you feel in that and putting it in a whole 2+ hour movie.
Whole movie.
And I think that's because Ryan Gosling is a replicant.
Yep.
And so therefore...
Which you do literally find out in the first 2 minutes of the movie. Which I loved that they just came in swinging with that. Because, I mean, we all had sort of debated when we'd been watching the trailers. We knew that the farmer in the very beginning, who was Dave Bautista. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
so
fantastic.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable in the whole 2 minutes of the movie that he's in, though you do get a couple little flashbacks to him, but you see this fight with him, and obviously in the trailers you saw him go busting through a wall, and then he and Ryan Gosling really get into it, and you just know immediately, even without him saying that this character has to be a replicant.
Right. Yeah, and that was the big thing for me, is like that whole scene is going and they go through the wall and he stabs him. I'm like, replicant.
Yep.
Has to be.
Yep.
Has to be. And then there's that one line of like, how does it feel, to take out one of your own? And I'm like, no wonder no one wants to talk about this movie. No wonder people are keeping this hush hush, because it's such a like to do, and it makes so much sense now when you think back about the movie and you look at Ryan Gosling, just Ryan Gosling as a person. He's got sort of this look, not a stone cold look, but it is kind of like what the T-1000, what Robert Patrick was to the T-1000.
Sure.
This look that you're like, yeah, you totally are this machine, this Terminator type of thing. You look at Ryan Gosling, you're like, yeah, I can totally picture that kind of look that you have being a replicant. And it works so well. And Dave Bautista in that scene. Can we just talk about for a minute how Dave Bautista went from like being a wrestler to having this like part in Guardians of the Galaxy, being a standout, and now he's doing these like little tiny pieces, but he's so damn good.
That's the interesting thing to me is like Dave Bautista. I was thinking about this, and I love The Rock. This is not besmirching on The Rock.
I know exactly what you're gonna say, and I agree.
But that The Rock has done a career of kind of playing The Rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Dave Bautista's acting.
He's swinging around.
No, he's
like,
totally. I mean, to the point that even though I had seen him in the trailers and I knew it was Dave Bautista watching it, I was like, is that Dave Bautista? And for some reason, it was when he put the glasses on that I went, oh yes, that is Dave Bautista.
Those little tiny spectacles. I think like there's so many things where I was like, oh, this movie. The first time Ryan Gosling is getting the test to see if he's baseline.
Oh, I know.
And that series of questions hitting him.
Yeah.
Every scene with Robin Wright.
Robin Wright was
Oh
killer.
my God. She is so good as basically his superior within the LAPD.
Yeah.
And their relationship is so interesting because he is a replicant. And there's this great scene between the two of them where she's like sitting in his apartment and says to him, sometimes I forget that you are that, which is a big theme of the movie.
Totally.
And that is absolutely a carryover from the first Blade Runner of like what constitutes reality, what makes a living thing, even if they are a robot, or they take it even a step further in this with the like AI projection girl Joy.
Yeah.
She was fantastic.
She's so great.
Well, that's why this movie to me worked, is what it was playing with its themes, unlike and again, when I talk about being melancholy, the two scenes that really, like, I almost dropped here just because, like, not even that they're super sad, but just how well they were hitting the emotion and theme of, for lack of a better term, the love scene between the projection and the replicant.
That was
Yes.
With Ryan Gosling. I thought that was so well done. And when Ryan Gosling goes to meet the creator of Memories. And it's just these two scenes that are all about what the film is about, which is about a desire for connection, a desire to live, to feel, to know what it is to be human, and these kinds of things. And like there was all these like just amazing sci-fi scenes that just underline those themes so well. Everyone in this movie I thought did it. I was very hard on Jared Leto in the two videos, like even like pretty hard making jokes and comments. I thought he did.
Jared Leto was outstanding in this movie, and
really
he's
good.
barely in it.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's what's so impressive about this movie is that there are. I mean, even Deckard, he's not in the movie.
He's not
until
really
like an
in
hour
it.
and a half into the
I
movie.
do wonder if that's gonna. If I could see some criticisms, criticisms of people kind of going about the movie, because the movie's getting crazy great praise right now that it deserves. I could see people going like, "Where's Harrison Ford?" Because it takes a while. It didn't bother me.
It didn't bother me either because it wasn't his story. I mean, the thing that there's a couple of sort of little interim stories that are told in the time period between Blade Runner, which takes place in 2019, and Blade Runner 2049, which of course takes place in 2049. And one of those, so I was very, very satisfied having seen Blade Runner Blackout, which is the short directed by Shinichiro Watanabe, who directed Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, that the blackout, which that little like 12-minute short covers, is referenced so many times in the film. It's a really significant event where basically now my interpretation, having seen this film, is that what we were seeing in that movie was kind of the beginning of the replicant resistance, who we meet later in the movie when Kay, Ryan Gosling's character, figures out that he's not who he's been thinking he is, and who the audience, me as an audience member, was going, no, it can't be. That's too easy. And I was
there too.
And I was so glad that I was right.
Yeah. It's that thing where we talk about whereas like the prequels felt like they made the Star Wars universe small, like everyone's connected. I had that feeling when the Ryan Gosling thing happened. I was like, oh.
No.
And as the movie was going, I was like, oh, you're making it work. I'm emotionally feeling it. I kind of wish that wasn't the thing. And then it turns out I was like, hey, you did it!
And when you
That's how I felt.
And when you feel his disappointment, so basically the main plot of the film, which again, I had no idea what it was going to be going into it,
Trailer
is that
does not even hint towards this.
not at all, not in the slightest, is that buried in a like right by a tree at Dave Bautista's farm is a box that is full of bones. They've been very carefully like cleaned and kept. For 30 years, and they find out as they're, you know, doing the like zooming in on the bones, getting a better look at things, which is a callback to the original film. They discover that these bones have a like replicant serial number on them, essentially. And the good thing is that because of the blackout and the replicants who destroyed the Nexus, there's no like ground records of any of the early replicants, so any of the pre-Wallace era replicants. So the Tyrell Corporation is no more, but Wallace bought it and now is mass producing replicants. And he's got info on all of his, but all of the older models, it's really hard to find info on them because all of those records were destroyed for the most part. But like little fragments of it exist. And so they basically find out that this replicant, well, they find out first that the person died in childbirth, and then they realize, oh shit, it was a replicant who had a baby. And so
which was like, holy shit, what?
And like Wallace's whole thing is he feels that he cannot create replicants fast enough. He basically needs replicants to be able to reproduce amongst one another with other humans. It's not really clear. It doesn't really matter. But
mass population is like the end.
That's
game.
His goal. Exactly. That is the end game for him. And then the revelation that there is a replicant who had a child, it's all basically the search for the missing child. So
which Villeneuve does very well.
He does it extremely well.
Other movies too. Like Prisoners, that's all that movie is. It's about finding a child.
How do we feel about, I want to ask this, that this film answers the Blade Runner question, is Deckard a replicant?
I didn't feel like it clearly answered it.
Oh, I did.
Really?
Yeah, I did not feel like it clearly answered it. And that was one of those things where, basically, the thing that I liked so much about this movie is that it didn't really answer all of my questions. I didn't want it to. I like open-ended endings because life doesn't wrap up in a neat little bow. And I thought that with basically in the scene where he and Wallace are having the confrontation and Wallace is basically insinuating that he is in fact a replicant and he was just made for the purpose of encountering Rachel exactly when he did, so they would fall in love and ultimately have this child. I don't feel like it was a definitive answer though, because basically all Deckard says is, I know what's real.
Yeah, I guess for me that made it definitive to me. If only because, and granted, this can also be the case.
Because you asked the question, I went, did I miss something?
No, I'm with you, Adam. I didn't seem very clear
fair,
to me.
And that's what people take away. I can also be taking away from the fact that the screenwriter who also wrote the original, Villeneuve, Harrison Ford, everyone who's not Ridley Scott has said, absolutely not. And Ridley Scott's the only person that's like, maybe, to the point where where Hampton Frost and everyone else has come out and been, you're hurting the original movie. Stop.
I actually think that scene was so important in the fact that they didn't 100% answer it, because you don't need to know the answer.
Oh yeah, it's not important.
I know what's real. I was in love with her. We had a baby together. It was a miracle.
Was my reality.
That was my reality, and that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah. Also, that scene of bringing back Rachel was brutal.
Brutal.
I read that they were bringing back a character, and I was like, that's probably going to be Edward James Olmos, who was an awesome little cameo.
Yeah, it was a good cameo.
But then they bring back Rachel at the end, and I was like, how is this gonna look? Here she comes out of the shadows. I went, oh shit, okay, this looks a lot better than Tarkin and Leia.
Yep.
They did a really good job with this.
It looked pretty great.
It looked pretty damn good. Like, it literally looked like they just scanned 4K footage and just cut her out and inserted her into this movie. It looked really, really good. That was a revelation. But I actually really appreciate the fact that this movie doesn't necessarily perfectly answer all the questions. Because to me, what makes an intriguing movie, just like the first Blade Runner, it raises a lot of questions of the origins of a lot of things and like, what are we doing on all these planets and colonizing and all this kind of stuff. But it doesn't, it's like, that's another story.
Yeah.
Let's worry about what's happening here. And even here, we're not going to tell you everything because it's not necessary.
So glad when Love, the other replicant girl, like Wallace's like right-hand lady, when she was amazing. Like I was terrified of her.
Oh yeah, it's worth saying this movie's brutally violent.
Yeah. But you still, this is the thing is that like you're terrified of her, but you also understand why she's doing what she's doing.
Yeah.
Because she needs to feel like she is special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She's emotionally vulnerable. I mean, every time something happens, she's very emotional about it. Like, she breaks down, and it's nice to see these different types of characters have so much different emotion, and you understand sort of why they are the way they are.
Yeah, and then in the scene where they're like trying to take Deckard off planet to torture him or whatever, I was so glad that they didn't make it, because again, that's another story. Like every time they started going down the route of like, okay, this could be predictable, or this is a totally different story, I don't really care what's going on. Like they were so good at Villeneuve was so good at just bringing everything back into focus and just really keeping the sort of just sticking to the singular theme of the movie of what constitutes
and
reality.
Keeping your interest in line.
Yeah,
because I think this movie is a lot longer than it's like 45 minutes longer than the first movie. The first movie, while it can be slow, it does move. This second movie, it moves, but it is still a lot longer. There's a lot more to kind of digest and a lot more to sort of be kind of like roped into. And I think that might be my only like minor thing about the movie. I feel like it is a little too long, but it kind of needs that.
I agree with you. I was watching it thinking, okay, this movie's kind of long, but also simultaneously thinking, man, I'd watch an 8-hour miniseries of this.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about what Villeneuve did is he took this world that he could have just, it could have not been what it was and still been entertaining, but the fact that it takes so much time to really chew the scenery. And I mean, even from the camera work, like it takes its time. And I kind of appreciate that because I feel like we don't get that in a lot of these movies, especially when they're sequels to nostalgic properties.
Big budget.
Yeah, like we don't get that. And this movie kind of just took its time and it said, you know what? If you're going to be invested in this, be fully invested because we're taking you on a long journey.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing I appreciate too. Is like Hampton Fancher, who's the original screenwriter, he was doing an interview, him and Michael Green, and Michael Green now is this year's 2 for 2 between this and Logan.
Right.
On screenwriting.
And he did Green Lantern, so that says a lot.
But Hampton Fancher was Hampton Fancher was asked like, oh well, do you think you'd ever explore the 30 years of what Deckard was up to? And he goes, and I love like old screenwriter, Hollywood screenwriters. He's like, no, who gives a shit? If I didn't see you for 30 years, you wouldn't give a shit what I did for 30 years. You'd ask me what I'm doing right now.
Exactly.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. I 100% agree.
Which is like the thing you were saying about like the story stays focused. I think a lot of that is Hampton Fancher just being like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're doing this.
We don't need to go over here.
Yeah, I would be interested to see if anything like that in the way that it is often with Star Wars would be explored in like comics or books or whatever, but I agree that I don't need to see what happens.
I love that it's a mystery. I was thinking about a side tangent. I was thinking about this today. That's like, for me, a lot of the fun of Star Wars and the stuff we grew up loving and watching was there was those questions of like, what do you think that is?
Yeah.
I feel like Star Wars today is like, what do you think that is? Someone can go, here's a novel that canonizes it.
Yeah.
And you kind of go,
that's true.
It's a little too much.
Like, how much cooler would Phasma be if it was just this cool costume that we could build upon as opposed to like, here's a novel.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, and that
answers everything.
And that's the thing. It's like I think we're coming to a point now where we feel like we need to unravel all the mysteries. We need to open up all the boxes. To see kind of
Who's
like
Wallace? Here's the Wallace novel.
I was gonna say, and
it's like I don't need that.
And that's the thing, and I think that for me is part of why I enjoyed this movie so much is because it didn't feel the need to give you all the answers. It's like, here's a story, enjoy it.
Plus, I feel like when you do that and when you try to go and you try to unravel all these mysteries, general audience then feels like they're lost because they don't have the backstory. They don't know where this character came from, and because it exists out there, there's this pressure to be like, well, you should know where Phasma came from or where this. It's like in this, you just jump in.
And I strongly argue that you do not have to have seen Blade Runner to see this movie.
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
If you do,
at all.
Great, but you do not have to.
You have a prologue.
I'll tell you.
Prologue,
you should see it because it's an awesome movie.
Yeah,
you
should definitely see it. It's great.
But what I also loved is like we said, Edward James Olmos has an appearance in this. I mean, obviously Harrison Ford is in it. But what I liked is that it would have been very easy for a lesser director and lesser screenwriters to make this the fan service.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times you see that with these franchises coming back is there's that it would have been very easy to be like, here's a photo of Batty. Here he is. Remember? Rutger Hauer.
He's in this universe still.
Yeah, he somehow here's a photo of him, and none of that's there. This doesn't feel like a fan service movie. And go see this in a movie with great sound.
Fuck.
Oh, dude.
The sound is amazing.
Yeah. I saw it in IMAX on City Walk, and it was unbelievable.
See, I'm torn. Like, I really want to watch this movie on IMAX, But like my big thing about IMAX movies that are not actually shot in 70 millimeter is I'm all about the framing of the movie. And especially with a DP like Roger Deakins, I'm always torn of like, did you shoot this with the intention of it being blown up on IMAX, or did you shoot the intention of it being in CinemaScope? So I'm like, I'm always so torn. It's like, it's such a nitpicky technical thing.
I think it was just very, very immersive to be with that big of a screen. And, the
sound
in the IMAX theater is fantastic.
So,
so like the first scene wherein Kay encounters Deckard at the abandoned
casino
hotel.
That's kind of what I got from it. It like literally sounded like Harrison Ford was behind me. It was
awesome.
What's going on?
Yeah, like the sound design in that movie. And I mean, if you're gonna get a guy like Roger Deakins to bring the visual style, your visual effects game has to be a 10. Your sound design has to be a 10. Everything has to be a 10 to like really follow his lead. And I think this movie did it in spades. It's so incredibly immersive.
Totally. I was in it the whole time. Even when I was thinking, oh, this is kind of long. But it was just because I was starting to get uncomfortable physically, not because I wasn't invested in the film anymore.
I do want to say I thought Harrison Ford was really good as well. Yeah. Harrison Ford, obviously, pretty much up until he came back for Han Solo, he was kind of entering that where people were saying like, it kind of feels like he's phoning it in, like he's kind of playing a lot of grunt parts. I think he did better. They're different characters, but I feel like in this, like he was asked to do a lot of emotional, heavy lifting. And he brought it. Yeah, and it was really, really good.
Yeah, and I think this character, I think doing Star Wars was sort of a big part, like a revelation to him. Maybe thinking like there is some value in coming back and doing these characters if the stories are right.
Yeah,
and I think he wasn't lying. He wasn't fluffing it up when he said that this movie really had something to say and something to add on to the Blade Runner universe.
It
really did. And Ryan Gosling was great in it. There really, honestly, there was not a bad performance in this movie. No matter how big or how small. And I love how much Denis Villeneuve built so much practical pieces to this movie, from the vehicles to some of the set pieces. When you then go into a full CG city of or CG replication of LA, or their version of it,
it feels real.
So real.
It does. It feels really
like miniatures,
real.
and it really just felt like a real lived and breathed in world that, even though it's this crazy future, it really just I was so impressed visually. And I think that's the big seller for me, is like, if it's a sci-fi movie and I don't believe that that's real, I'm out. I'm out. I'm a real stickler about that.
There was basically nothing about this movie that didn't work for me.
Same.
Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was like it just had all the right elements, and when it was really creepy, it worked because it was the right characters, the right moments. When it soared, and I really have nothing aside from the length. Maybe that's really all I can really complain about. The rest of it, I'm like, you gave me a movie that I was not even expecting that I wanted.
Yep.
So it was a big win to me. Any other final thoughts? Score was awesome, by the way.
Oh yeah, the score is incredible.
Score was really good. There was so much like
back to the old Blade Runner score.
So much like Vangelis influence in there. It's Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfisch, I think is his name. He's the composer for the It movie.
Okay.
It was supposed to be Johan Johansson, and for whatever reason, they ended up parting ways on the project. We don't know why, but I was really impressed by the score. I think that's another layer that you need to make it really feel like
that's
Blade
what
Runner.
It was, is that all of the elements just worked super well together. It all felt extremely cohesive, and with the score behind it, you really were taken on this journey with Kay, Ryan Gosling's character, kind of unraveling some of the mysteries of this world, but not too much. It's
just enough.
Just so good.
Just enough. Any other final thoughts?
Go
see this movie.
Run.
Just go see it.
Run. Find a theater with good sound.
Seriously. Hopefully you're not still watching if you wanted to see this movie. you stopped at all of us being like, we love it. Go see it. Now we're going to spoil it.
Yeah.
And I would definitely recommend picking up this 4K remaster of Blade Runner. It is such a nice remaster. And it just gives you a little bit of context as to like what Blade Runner 2049 could potentially go into. But if you don't watch this first movie, you're in for a treat, because this second movie is so damn good on its
see
own.
the second movie, and then you'll go, you know what? I really want to watch the first movie, because the second movie was so damn good, and you really don't have to see them in order.
You don't.
Yeah.
Cameron, recommend a cut.
Would
you go final?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
me too.
I think they're all worth watching, and kind of if you're like a film academic type. I think the theatrical cut's it's very interesting.
Yeah.
There's certain things
It's
about
very
it.
different. It
It's
feels very different.
Totally.
Yeah. But if you do have this or the Blu-ray set, the documentary on this Dangerous Days, which is a 3-hour making of, is amazing. It's a lot of Ridley Scott movies have amazing documentaries. This is one of them, really talking about the struggle to make the movie, all the fights Ridley Scott got into creatively, and all these other things. It makes you appreciate the movie even further, how hard it was to make, and all that stuff. But yeah, the final cut to me is the cut to watch.
Yeah. Agreed. Before we go, Emma, where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram mostly at my name, Emma Fife, EMMAFYFFE.
It's from me, twitter.com/Jurassic Alien. You can also see me here doing the wrestling podcast on Tuesdays. And Mondays is Indomitable. We also do, I produce the Hyper Sketch Show along with Elizabeth, Matt, and Iffy. So check that out. That's once a month at the Hyper Drives. Those are individual episodes of the Hyper Sketch. You should go check out. And also on the website, I'm doing some more writing soon. I might be doing a piece on the Blade Runner Blu-ray. So check that out when that drops.
You should. Cameron,
Yeah.
you should.
Yeah.
I'm just at Adam Havoc. We're going to be at TwitchCon in a couple weeks as well. We have an official panel there.
Yep.
We're going to be announcing a whole lot of other stuff for Hyper Heroes and for Hyper RPG as well. So make sure you subscribe. Jump over to the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/HyperRPG. Check out all the programming that we do every single day. And we'll catch you in the next review. Let us know in the comments below what you thought about the movie too. Bye.
Later.